We're joined by Elizabeth Dent, a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for New East Policy. She previously served at the Pentagon as director for the Gulf and Arabian Peninsula, overseeing the US defense relations with the Gulf states. Elizabeth, hello and welcome to Asia One News. Having managed US defense ties with the Gulf, how are Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar and the UAE reassessing their security after the Iranian strikes on their territory?
I think they're reassessing their security very seriously. Obviously, over the last, 2 decades, they have been relying upon the United States as the primary security guarantor in the region. I think what they've learned from that, especially quite recently, is that sometimes that can bring them into conflict rather than keep them out of it. And so for them, this is really going to be about how can they better protect themselves against missiles and drones? How can they better protect their infrastructure, their civilians, their assets? And then, of course, how to reduce their exposure to being pulled into some sort of conflict like this. So I think that they are reassessing right now. The question will be whether or not Iran overplays its hand and tries to continue to to shoot at ballistic missiles and drones and angers a lot of these Gulf states who then may want to actually get involved.
And Trump swapped the Hormuz toll for trade and investment deals with Gulf states. Does that give Washington more leverage, or does it look transactional at a moment of real security risk?
It does look highly transactional. I think trade and investment are very important to the Gulf states. We saw that be a huge part of President Trump's first trip during his second term in May of 2025. But a lot tying these to security concerns can look more of a coercive form of pressure that I think a lot of the Gulf states are unlikely to appreciate at this moment in time. It may buy the United States some influence, but I think it can also risk exposing some of the limitations of the U.S. commitment if vessels are still going to be targeted and hit, if the U.S. is actually unable to provide the security that it's proposing.
And the Islamabad MOU was intended to ensure safe navigation in the Strait. With attacks on commercial shipping continuing, has that framework effectively broken down?
It's a good question. I think functionally at this moment in time, it seems as though, yes, the framework has broken down. At the very least, the ceasefire appears to have broken down. If we, it still exists on paper. The question is whether or not the United States and Iran can actually move back towards that memorandum of understanding and put it back into place. But again, that really only works if there's going to be compliance on both sides and enforcement, and that's just not what we're seeing at this moment in time.
And CENTCOM has said it has struck more than 300 targets in a week. From a defense perspective, is the US Iran's ability to threaten shipping, or is Tehran adapting to the campaign?
It's probably a little bit of both. Obviously the U.S. strikes have degraded Iran's capabilities. We've certainly seen fewer ballistic missiles being launched than we saw being launched in, let's say, April, for example. But that also could be the fact that Iran is deciding to sort of hide or put some of their missiles and drones into facilities that cannot be detected, or targeted by U.S. forces. So that could be Iran adapting to potentially a longer term war. So yes, I do think that the degradation of some of their capabilities has happened. The question is whether or not it's actually been effective in ensuring that they cannot continue to rebuild and replenish that capability.
And Elizabeth, the Gulf states are becoming increasingly exposed to the conflict. How willing are they to continue hosting US military operations if they remain vulnerable to retaliation?
I think at this specific moment in time, they are all going to continue to host US operations. I think it's too soon to really say what the future could actually look like. We have to really look at what the aftermath of this war is going to be, whether the memorandum of understanding comes back into play or whether there is a new agreement. Um, that if the Gulf states see themselves as more vulnerable because they're going to continue to host US forces, rebuild a lot of these bases, then they may say that they would like to see less of a presence, and certainly more of a low profile presence from the Americans in their countries. But I think until we have sort of a standardized outcome from this war, and we know what the agreement is actually going to look like, not just a short-term agreement for 60 days, but a long-term agreement that can really allow the Gulf countries to um, create a strategy that can help keep them safe. So until we really have that, I think it'll be difficult to tell what the reassessment is for American bases in the region.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it today.